The first alien to call me a useful pet got hurled into the recycler, and I've been improvising ever since. That was 2 years ago. Back then, I was nothing more than a maintenance worker, just another human grunt plucked from Earth to keep the lights running on Station Udo Primis. The aliens who ran the place, a smug collection of species, calling themselves the Sci-Fi Collective, treated humans like a mix between janitors and lab rats. We were there to sweep the floors, fix the engines, and occasionally get injected with experimental serums to see how many arms we could grow before dying. We weren't exactly in a position to complain. The CYPH had tech centuries beyond ours, faster than light drives, molecular assemblers, weapons that could split atoms with surgical precision, all casually thrown into the most mundane tasks like automating cafeteria doors or scrubbing out air vents. They were convinced they were untouchable. We were just primitives to them, things they could use and discard. Then the war came. It started with tremors, faint at first, but impossible to ignore. Then the alarms blared, and the collective abandoned ship faster than a rat fleeing a sinking vessel. Their enemies, the so-called Draw Imperium, were on the warpath, and Udo Primis was right in their way. The CYPH didn't care enough to evacuate the humans. Why bother? We were just useful pets after all. When the last CYPH shuttle zipped away into the black, I realized something important. This station was now mine. At first, survival was all I could think about. The station was falling apart, its power cores failing. And worse, I could already see the lights of an incoming draw fleet on the outer scanners. Staying alive felt like trying to outrun a collapsing building while juggling flaming chainsaws. But I had one advantage the CYPH never counted on. I'd been watching them. Every repair, every patch job, every system they asked me to fix or calibrate I'd learned. They treated me like I was part of the furniture, so they didn't care if I saw too much. I saw everything. The station's layout was a web of redundancies, hidden compartments, and backup systems that the Sci-Fi had designed to ensure their own survival. All it needed was someone crazy enough to exploit it. I was that someone. The first thing I did was lock down the station. Emergency protocols kicked in, sealing the main docking bay with reinforced bulkheads. The CYPH had designed these to withstand minor meteoroid impacts or depressurization events, but with a few adjustments, they were now strong enough to repel boarding parties. The draw wouldn't be strolling in uninvited. Next, I rigged the power cores. The CYPH ran them at a fraction of their capacity for stability, but I didn't need stability. I needed output. Using every ounce of knowledge I'd scraped together, I bypassed their safety protocols and rerouted the energy into key systems, shields, weapons, and most importantly, traps. The CYPH loved redundancy. It was their golden rule. Never build one system when you could build 3. That meant I had a lot to work with. The environmental controls could vent toxic gas into specific sections. The gravity systems could be manipulated to crush or disorient intruders. And the station's automated maintenance drones, designed for repair work, could be reprogrammed into aggressive sentries. By the time the draw showed up, Udo Primis wasn't just a station. It was a fortress. Their first wave was cautious. A single scout ship drifted into scanning range, broadcasting standard diplomatic greetings. I answered by disabling their engines with a focused energy beam and dragging them into the docking bay with a tractor field. The crew inside, 6 hulking draw soldiers covered in chitinous armor, were furious but alive. I let them stew in a sealed cargo bay while I hacked into their systems, siphoning every scrap of data I could. The draw weren't here for diplomacy. Their fleet was just days behind, and they'd come expecting an easy prize. I made sure they wouldn't get it. The second wave arrived before I was ready. A frigate this time, bristling with weapons and flanked by 2 smaller escort ships. I barely had time to reroute power to the shields before they opened fire. The station shook under the barrage, but the shield fields held just barely. I activated the decoys. Hundreds of small reflective drones launched from the station's hull, each projecting false sensor readings to the draw. It looked like Udo Premies was suddenly surrounded by a swarm of identical stations, all bristling with weapons. Their formation broke as they scrambled to figure out which target to hit. That was when I fired the particle cannon. It was a relic from an older age, buried deep in the station's archives and listed as decommissioned. The CYPH had long since replaced it with sleeker, more efficient weaponry, but they never bothered to dismantle the original. With the power cores pushed to their limit, I fired a single shot. The frigate didn't stand a chance. The cannon's beam tore through its shields and hull in an instant, leaving nothing but a field of spinning debris. The escort ship scattered, retreating beyond sensor range. I knew they'd be back, and they'd bring reinforcements, but that was fine. Every moment they spent regrouping was a moment I used to fortify my defenses. I redirected power to fabricate additional drones, repaired damaged systems, and expanded my traps. The station wasn't just a fortress anymore, it was a weapon, and I was learning how to use it. By the time the third wave hit, I wasn't just reacting, I was hunting. I let the draw fleet approach within striking distance before activating the station's cloaking field. The CYPH had used it sparingly, worried about the power draw, but I had no such concerns. Udo Premies vanished from their sensors, leaving them adrift in a field of decoys. When they opened fire, their shots passed harmlessly through empty space. I targeted their flagship first, a massive cruiser bristling with weapons. Using the same tractor beams I'd employed earlier, I dragged a field of debris directly into its path, crushing its forward engines and leaving it dead in the water. The rest of the fleet scrambled, firing blindly at decoys and shadows. I picked them off one by one. Automated drones swarmed their smaller ships, tearing through their hulls with plasma cutters. Gas vents flooded their boarding shuttles, rendering their troops unconscious before they could breach my defenses. The station's particle cannon fired intermittently, each shot precise and devastating. By the time the battle ended, the draw fleet was in shambles, half their ships destroyed, the rest limping away in retreat. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't just about survival anymore. The CYPH had abandoned us, and the draw had come to enslave or kill us. They both saw humans as nothing more than tools, disposable and insignificant. But I wasn't disposable, and I wasn't insignificant. I'd turned their technology against them, used their own arrogance as a weapon. Udo Premies wasn't just a station, it was a symbol of what humanity could become when pushed to the edge. The draw would be back, of course, and so would the CYPH, once they realized what I'd done. But I wasn't afraid. I'd spent 2 years as a pet, a servant, a thing. Now I was something else. I was the master of Udo Premies, and anyone who wanted to take it from me would have to pry it from my cold, dead hands.